Well, good evening, Tri-County family. Quickly, I want to thank you for taking the time to pray over our Upward Football and Cheer outreach last week. It was not only successful from an organizational and participation standpoint, but for the reasons that we were able to continue to connect with our community, faithfully share gospel truths, and speak the gospel into children and parents' lives. We would ask that you continue to pray for our follow-up. Well, tonight we jump back into our series, News from the Field. Through this month, we've been coming alongside individuals and couples from our missionary family and taking some time to catch up with their ministry, learn about things we can pray for, as well as celebrate with them by praising and thanking God for answered prayer. We hope that this will not only be a blessing to them, but also an encouragement to you as we connect you to our missionaries and equip you for more effective prayer. Well, tonight, we'll be hearing from Dan and Lucy R.C., serving in Venezuela. We know that this country has been especially hard to minister in because of its government. But now that the pandemic has been added to the mix, well, allow me to have Dan share with you how we need to be praying and how we can specifically minister. Well, church family, again, thank you for joining us tonight in this series, News from the Field. We've had some incredible reports over the last several weeks, and tonight's not going to be any different. We're going to be speaking with Dan R.C., our missionary to Venezuela. He is always a live wire. I love listening to him, love having him here at the church. He always makes coffee nervous, and so I really enjoy he and his family. And so right now, I'm just going to hand things over to Dan and let him just give us an update on the field. And then when he's towards the end of that, we'll maybe take some time to interact with him a little bit more. Some things come up during the middle of his presentation before we end up letting him go and saying goodbye to everyone. So again, Dan, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Pastor Brian, honestly, like always, it's always a pleasure to see you guys, see the church. Tri-County and my family go way back. I'm talking when everything was black and white. And a couple of months after Noah and the Ark, kind of like that. So we just love Tri-County, and to all the folks watching or that are going to watch this, we love you guys. Thank you so much for praying, for writing, for your comments and posts on any social media that we put out. Thank you very much. How are things going here on the field? Well, there's so many things, or there's so many ways to try to describe it, and I'll try to do that within the 99 minutes that Pastor Brian told me to have. So ministry-wise, it's become very extremely difficult. We're not allowed to gather as church. Last Sunday was kind of a treat. Last Sunday morning, the government allowed us to worship or to gather from 10 in the morning till 12 noon. And that was our limit. That was our limit. We have no more. And even prepping and setting up the sound system, if we're before 10, we're being not careless, but we're running into danger if some police or National Guard stop by. And if one of them got off the bed with the wrong foot that day, they'll pull us over and just create all kind of, they'll just heckle us and create problems. But here's the crazy thing. I've kind of felt free this week because I've not been stuck in a gas line. Right now, the political system in Venezuela, the whole, how would I say, the tenure, the ambiance, the environment, it's just so thick you can cut it with a knife. It's so, everyone's overwhelmed, everyone's stressed, everyone's upset. You talk to people, they're like, what? And you're like, hey, just wanted to greet you or whatnot. I'm talking traffic and cars, people walking by, everybody is on edge. They're walking on pins and needles because there is so much junk going on in the country, and it is no longer hidden or under wraps. It's just out blatant. We don't care. We're corrupt, and we're going to do things our way. And obviously, we as citizens here, or whoever lives here in the country, is getting the rough part of it. You know, we're getting hurt. It's hard to do groceries. It's hard to fill gas. It took me 16 days in one gas line just to get 10 gallons of gasoline for one of my cars and about a gallon and a half to 2 gallons for my motorcycle. It's just that has become the norm, completely absolute norm. I've been shocked by mankind. And I had seen it in maybe certain people that were maybe restless or just rebellious, but now I'm seeing a whole country, as the country nosedives, every step down takes some adjustment, but after a couple of weeks or maybe a month, people actually adjust to the downgrade. It downgrades and people adjust, and then it downgrades more and they adjust. And I've been years ago, I was ready to pull an M16 out and go, all right, who's with me? But that's not why I'm here. I couldn't even come out in flaming colors or whatnot. Well, that could come out really wrong. But anyhow, people here are so complacent. I wouldn't say submissive, because that's not something that characterizes Venezuelan people. They're not submissive. They're always challenging. But the regime, the communist drug lord government has killed so many innocent people that the common citizen is simply scared to voice his opinion, to say what he feels, or to stand on his ground and say, I'm against you, because he'll get shot down, imprisoned, you name it. And on top of that, we're going through a world pandemic, and we've already seen back in the States how much junk there is and all that stuff. Well, here they've got another twist, and it seems, I've been reading the news, and it's almost like every country is using this pandemic story with a twist to their convenience, be it financial, government, elections, you name it. Venezuela is using it, and every day they are spilling out on news, on TV, radio, the extremely high, increasing number of COVID patients. And so many hundreds are dying every day. But if I go to the hospital, there's not one single COVID patient, But the thing is, they don't allow me to go in with a camera into the clinics and hospitals. They don't allow other people, even people who work with the news and media. They don't allow them to go in and check and see. There's no one to check where these sources are coming from or where they're bringing the information. And there's no doubt, we've known it. They've got an entire stadium up in the capital in Caracas, and they closed the entire stadium, and they put a makeshift clinic kind of thing. But the people that are going in and out are saying nobody's in there. Maybe a couple 50 or 70 people, but this is a stadium that fits thousands of people. They've used it for concerts and games. I mean, you name it, a stadium can pack out, but there's hardly nobody in there. And so we already know, the whole country knows, here's the fact, the whole country knows that they're being played. And the regime here, the government is using it to their convenience. So all shops are closed by 1 o'clock in the afternoon. If you're not wearing a mask, you'll get arrested. Even if you're in your car, if you drop it down and you're in your car and police stop you, like, well, you need to pull over, and they'll find you. They'll bust a light. In other words, to arrest you. They'll try to impound your car, your motorcycle, you name it. And it's a lawless country. There is no law, and those that are in authority can pretty much do whatever they want. The law is good for the people, but not for those in authority. And fortunately, we have a God that is so far from all of that. He is just so amazing. And we've seen God, a God of grace, of mercy, of patience, of ever-loving kindness, come down and bless our church, even in the midst. We have not stopped supporting the missionaries. We've got one of our missionaries that's from our church, and he works in the jungle, and we have not stopped buying his groceries every month. There's a boat that rides in from one of the main towns called Puerto Ayacucho, and the boat goes upriver and with tons and tons of groceries, and he sells it village by village. And so he gets his grocery, he calls us, we do a wire transfer from Venezuelan bank to Venezuelan bank and pay the people that own the boat. And so he's able to get some groceries that he couldn't fly into. It cost him about $200 just to get in town once a month. And we don't even support him for that amount. So that has been a tremendous blessing. So we're seeing our missionaries being fed, being taken care of. On top of that, our church, it suffered in the fact that we can't gather. We can't be together. And I'll tell you, Pastor, I'm sure you guys went through it a little bit. I mean, 1 month and you're like, okay, when are we starting up again? But we're going on past 5 months now, and it's just been, it's aggravating, it's irritating. We get angry, and I'm being transparent. I've gotten angry, I've gotten upset. Our staff, our pastoral team, the church, because we see the government officials hosting mega parties, and they're calling them Corona parties, which are parties during the coronavirus thing. And they spend hundreds of thousands of dollars per party, yet we cannot gather as a church. The bus is full, cram-packed of people, but we can't gather at the church, even with what they call social distancing and whatnot, and the proper. So last Sunday was our first in a long while, in about a month and a half, 2 months, that they had allowed us to even get together. And we had the temperature readers, and we had the chemicals to spray on the hands, and we had chairs slightly separated. We had it out in an open door basketball court, and we had timeline because the people that from the community that play could play from the time that the governor said, from 10 to 12. So we actually did our service from 8 to 10, praying that God would not allow National Guards or police to stop by and see us having a service 2 hours before time. Not a single police walked by. All the neighbors came out, people that were in line. Understand this, hundreds of cars are in line waiting in gas. Almost every street in our city right now is lined, I'll repeat the word, is lined with a line of cars, one right after the other. Every street, no matter where you turn, left, right, there's cars parked one right after the other, because they're in line for the different gas stations all over the city. And it just so happened that right across that basketball court, there was cars on this lane and this lane. So they all started rolling their windows down and opening their front door, sitting on their hoods. They pop up seats. And so our staff, our volunteers at our church, the servers, they ran out, grabbed chairs, ran out to the street, and started putting chairs on the island in the middle between both streets. And so all the people that were in line waiting for gas were hearing. We had over 100 and something people. Those were the people that could make it with gasoline. Those that couldn't make it live way far out of our city, so they can't make it at all. And the rest was 100 and something was just our church members. And then the rest was just people from the community or other towns that were in that line and had been in that line. Matter of fact, I kept turning around and referencing to them, and I'm like, hey, let's give these guys a round of applause. They've been patient. They've been awesome. And now they're here with us. And I mean, they just felt, and it was so cool, because at the end of the service, they weren't, sitting in their chairs or leaning from their car. No, they were clinging to the fence surrounding our basketball courts, doing like this, laughing, or in other words, their body language was saying, wow, this is true. And it was just so incredible. And believe it or not, the focus of my message on Sunday was Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. I talked through the book of John, and I talked about the woman at the well. I talk about Jesus in John chapter 1, how he is the living word, and how we see religions and ideologies. And there's so many people. We had people come up and say, hey, are you guys going to be at this court next Sunday? Because I got family, I'd like to bring them. And so today we're meeting, our staff is meeting today, and we're planning, okay, if the governor grants us permission for this Sunday, then we're going to go ahead and do it there. And they're asking us to now go to another basketball court / school so the word is getting out. Plus that, the 16 days that I was in line, I met dozens and dozens of people. We preached to several of them got saved. Now, the key thing is I would have never met them because they weren't close to our church or anything. But through that line, through 16 days of eating breakfast, lunch, supper, sitting in line, looking for shade during the day. I mean, you're literally hunting for shade out on the main stretch of highway. Okay, I want you to imagine, the 75 goes through Ohio, doesn't it? Or is it 85? Okay, 75 goes. So just imagine off of 75. So you've got cars going in several lanes going one way, several lanes coming the other way. And imagine the right lanes on both ways just crowded with thousands of vehicles, and everybody's trying to find shade. Where do you find shade in those places? Believe it or not, we were able to do it. We'd put umbrellas, we'd stick them in the back of our pickup trucks, and and fold them. We made do. One said, hey, I got some meat. All right, I got some lettuce and tomatoes. Bring it. We grilled burgers one day. Other days, it was just literally bread and a slice of ham, one thin slice of ham in each one. But it's incredible. Right now, the main means of transportation for the whole country has switched over to bicycles. Everybody, Pastor, it's starting to look like China a little bit. I kid you not. Everybody. And so we had many members of our church driving up and down, doing it, working as delivery. And remind me about the bicycles at the end, because I am right now trying to create a project where we can raise bicycles and have them shipped in, because the bicycles that are being sold here, first, they're made in China, and with all due respect to anyone from there, they're junk. And after a couple months, they're torn apart. So we need to bring in some bicycles. And the ones that are being sold here are 2-3 times what you would cost in Target or Walmart or whatever. So I'm like, you know what? Let's go ahead and get some good bikes, see if we can put some little racks on it, because people are working. I mean, their livelihood depends on this bicycle to take them from one city to another, or from one end of town to the other. And they're doing delivery. There's guys working as mechanics, and they're carrying their tools in the back. You name it, plumbers, carpenters, businessmen. There's no difference. There is no difference. I've got a couple in our church. They lead part of our graphic design team at church. They've got 2 little tiny kiddie bikes, and they run up and down between cities, doing design things, web designings and stuff for people on that. My heart breaks for them, and I want to try one way or the other to find bicycles for these people. So maybe we can talk about that towards the end, if that's okay with you, Pastor Brian. I'll let you think about it or pray about it and see what we can do. But this is just, it's a matter of fact, that's coming up on our next newsletter. It's the bicycle project, and they're really simple to remember. But incredibly, God is overwhelmingly humbling us day by day, because here we go thinking that everyone's going to be depressed. My brother and I and many others, we're working. Even my sons are helping me daily. We are creating daily devotionals, but not just like, here, read Psalms 23. Wow, isn't that sound beautiful? No, we're talking about almost like Bible Institute or Bible College. Right? We're talking about the second coming of Christ. We're talking about absolute truths, and we're talking about faith, and we're talking about the blood of Jesus, and we're doing week-long studies. And so the churches, they've written us and said, man, even though we've not been sitting in the congregation and receiving the word that's been brought to us has been equally powerful. So it's incredible to see the church growing, the church inviting community members to join evenings for the devotionals. And so they'll show pictures. We've got folks right now grabbing their bikes, and we really worked on the second coming of Christ, Pastor Brian, for several weeks. And I mean, I said, if there was any time that it is really evident that I mean, they're tuning them horns, it is now. And I said, I don't say the day, I don't say the time, because only our Lord knows. But in the meantime, what should the church be doing? And incredibly, Pastor Brian, the church has been going out on their little tiny kiddie bikes, handing out food. Some families don't even eat themselves, and they go out and they give whatever they prepared for lunch to 6, 7, 8 people, and they witness and they invite them, and they say, listen, join us every day on WhatsApp or the different social media applications, and hear what God is doing, and hear from our pastors. And so it has just been, it's been a school, because I've been on the mission field so long, and I have never lived through anything like this. And I can truly say God is a God of all people, but of all times and all circumstances. And he is showing himself strong on behalf of his church here. And I praise the Lord for that. I'm blessed to see you guys back home being able to gather and worship. We had missed it so long. I was getting jealous. It was a holy jealousy, but I was so jealous seeing all the stores open and all the stuff, and I'm going, man. To do grocery, you got to wait in line. To get gas, you wait in line. To pay for your phone, you wait in line. There's nothing you do that you don't wait in line. And I've told people, I said, do you guys want to know of a place where there will be no more lines? I've said that. I've quoted that line actually. And they said, where? I said, in eternity. I said, where God's attention is yours 24/7. And there is no line to get your meal, to go to bed. And you see the smile come up on people. Half of the smile is like heaven. The other smile is like, for real? I don't have to wait in line. And so we're seeing, Pastor Brian, God do incredible things. My wife, my kids, all of our ministry team here is just, we're learning as we're teaching. And I don't think there's any other way to teach. We need to continually learn. That way we can continually give what God is giving us as well.
Good. Well, I tell you what, don't feel like you're alone, because all of us are learning. Overnight, God turned us all into televangelists. And so it's just been a large curve. And that's right. And people have been so incredibly gracious through this process too. We appreciate that. Two things, and then maybe we'll wrap up our time together. First, just give us an update on your health, because the last time you were here with us, not long after that, you went right back, and then boom, you were in that accident with the motorcycle.
Yes.
And we kind of followed that journey in your life. And then go ahead and circle back around and talk about the bicycle project.
Good deal. Well, I'll start with the bike and I'll end with bicycles. We arrived November 28th. That's when we left Chattanooga and arrived here in Venezuela. And everything was great. It took us about a week to just settle in, get a few fans and air conditioners in our house coughing off and starting to get on again. And we had some people from our church so graciously go and clean the house for us that weekend. And it was great. We had a wonderful service, and we were getting ready for our biggest Christmas event ever. We had, since I had been in the States, I hadn't had time to prepare the concerts like we did 2 years ago. And so what we had planned on doing was just one concert in our city. And we had several offers for places. People had seen what had happened the year before, and they were giving us venues here and there. And we were even thinking, man, should we do two maybe? Let's take advantage of people, and they weren't charging us. And then on December 7th or 8th, I believe, it was actually 9-10 days right after I arrived. I was getting used to the lines for gasoline again. It was a Saturday morning. I needed to get gasoline for my motorcycle. I was almost on empty, and they had taken my pickup truck early in the morning with all the speakers and sound system and all that to set up at the softball field we were going to be at, because obviously, even though everyone thinks we're there to play, our objective is to preach the gospel. And so we have music in between, and people like that, It's a little lively music and stuff, but I mean, the community likes it and all that. And well, as I'm going down to the gas line and there's no gas, I go to the next one. Driving on, I was on the slow lane. I was on the right, and there's this little tiny entry with about 4 houses, and the whole entrance is covered with those big thicket bushes that just like adhere to walls and stuff like that. It's just so thick you couldn't see anything. It was really tall. And as I'm on my right lane. I was going maybe 30 miles or something like that on the main road, and this car pulls out with his face looking the opposite direction. People here do not, and I repeat, do not know how to drive. It's a fact. It's a fact. But as we're there, it was crazy because he just stopped, and it took me 1 or 2 seconds just to hit him straight on. 1, 2, boom, and I was flying over his car. My motorcycle smashed into his. It dented his car into about, I'd say, a quarter into his car. It went deep in. And because it wasn't like he was in movement. He was just stopped right there. So all that brunt force and what it did, and I'll show you the difference. Here's my right hand. I can fully open it. This is my left hand. That's as far as I can open it right now. Now, this morning, I was out with my son, Brian, getting some ultrasounds and x-rays done because the next stage in therapy starts next week. Before all these 3 fingers were closed like this. I couldn't even bend my wrist too much. It was about this. And so I looked like this, and I started working my hand, and I got my pinky to kind of lift up. So everybody said, Pastor Spider-Man, and they're like, what's up, Pastor? I mean, that was the joke, and I'd show up. So I was 2 months laid out flat in bed. I could not move. I was literally stitched up, and my pelvic bones completely moved out of play. I didn't have a single bone break, not a single bone broke. But all these bones fell out of place. They were all over, and I had like a little mountain on my hand. And my hip, when I touched the front part, because I knew it hurt, I felt something really hard, and I was like, all right, that's something weird. And my bone came out, and I was ready to give birth pretty much. I had good dilation, you know. And the crazy thing is that I'm on the floor picking up my phone out of my pocket, calling my wife, and my words were, hey, honey, can you pick me up? I just ran into a guy, just pick me up and take me home. I had no idea what had happened to me. Here's the last part, and I'm not necessarily proud of it, but I wasn't wearing a helmet, and here's the reason why. It was 2 blocks away from my house. So I said, I'm just going to run out, get gas. My mind was still back in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I'm thinking I'll run up to the gas station, pump gas, and then head off to the softball field. And gas station after gas station, all in a 5-block radius from my house. No, man, you got to get in line. I was like, oh, man. So when I finally went out to see if there was one last option, that's when I ran into this car. And I left my boots. I left my friend's bag that had all his softball equipment. But for some reason, I put my helmet, my boots, that bag on the floor beside the door. So I said, I'll put gas, come back, pick it up, and leave. I'll put my boots on for my bike and whatnot. Well, all of a sudden, I throw my backpack on. Now, I had just come in from a missions conference up in Des Moines, Iowa at Grace Church. Pastor Phil, I forget his last name now. Great church, friends of ours for many years. He was a missionary in Peru for so long. And one of the gifts they gave me was this North Face backpack. I mean, buddy, it was sweet. It was, the padding on the back of that sucker was like, you know, I felt like I'm going to lay on that instead of my bed from now on. It's just comfortable. Well, I threw it on. All I had in there was my Bible, my softball cleats, my softball uniform, and some tracks. That's all I had. Why I put it on, only God knows, but God knew I needed the backpack. I put it on, and you know how it snaps in the front too? There's this little clicker that snaps on. Well, I snapped it on, so it was right here, and I pulled it up, and I took off on my bike. 15 minutes later, I'm flying over this car. I'm landing on the ground. I'm flying head first. I flipped, but I'm flying head first. And I remember I landed feet, hip, head, like a whiplash. Exactly in that order. Feet, hip, and that's when my hip displaced, and head. My head should have shattered. There was nothing protecting my head. But incredibly, at the moment where I'm flinging over, my backpack flips over my head and does this, and I'll do a profile. It does this on my head. It literally covers. I had this hat on backwards, or another hat like this, but I had the cap backwards because I was going to put my helmet on. And when I'm on the bike, I don't like it flipping up, so I just flip it around. I had my glasses on, and I took off. The backpack flipped over my head. I flipped, snapped my head on the ground real loud. I heard the ring, and then it phased out. And everybody, members from our church that even had shops real close, ran. Everybody ran. And everybody, the members of our church, like, Pastor, your backpack looks in the shape of a helmet. And they literally, nobody had a camera at hand. I said, I wish I'd had it. But the backpack had taken the shape of my head and from the back of my neck all the way to the front of my face. And the only scrape I had was on my nose because this plastic thing, like it did this. And it grabbed my head and adhered it to the backpack. And the plastics, the nylon scratched my nose. That was it. I laid in bed in the surgery room the next day, surprised that I was even alive. And I called that church, and they called the store, and the store actually wrote a story about me and how the North Face backpack saved my life. And so somewhere up in Des Moines, Iowa, in a little tiny town, they've heard of a guy that was saved by their backpacks that they sell. So, but God saved me. And actually everything went white when I was up in the air. I saw nothing. I heard nothing. When I fell down, my eyes opened. I was fully conscious. And my hand was destroyed. My hip was displaced and destroyed. It looked wrong. I looked like I was reassembled in the wrong way. And fortunately, they said it'll take you a year to get your hand to move and your hip and to walk again. Literally 2 months later, with the help of my doctor and my wife, I took the first step off the mat and walked. And I stayed on a wheelchair for a couple of weeks. But every time my wife was looking, I'd try to stand up, and they put kind of a bracket in front of my two pelvic bones just to hold them in place so that my bones would heal properly. It wasn't put in place to stay there. It was to help and encourage the healing. And it's healed completely. I have played basketball, soccer. I'm riding my motorcycle again. I can actually fully grip the clutch and whatnot. And this right now is a miracle. I mean, all my 5 fingers, and I can pick my ears and other places I don't mean to share, but I mean, it's just incredible how God's been able to do that. My family has seen, and God was great. And if I need to stay there for a couple of months while I'm still doing therapy, I don't mind it. I get to tell people about what the scar meant and how God saved my life. And it's been incredible. But honestly, that's everybody's in motorcycles, everybody's in bicycles, because right now gas is so expensive. It's more expensive than it's in the States. Right now they're selling a liter anywhere from $2 to $3 a liter. And just so you know, there's, what is it, 3.6 liters to a gallon. So do the math. I mean, it's just, we're talking $7 to $10 per gallon, and in one of the richest countries in oil in the world. Yeah. It's just because it's being mismanaged by a corrupt system.
Now, if you can really quickly, because our time's starting to run short for us, can you in about 3 minutes just give us a quick idea, what can we do for bikes? You mentioned bikes.
All right. Well, there are several ways we can do it. To buy them here, we can buy them. They're just going to be more expensive. Now, whatever cost a bike would be, I'd say Walmart, go to Target in your mind. What, $150, 120, 180, they range in that. If somebody can pay a little extra and put like one of those little, not a basket like the little daisy baskets, but like a little case or something that we could, a basket that we could put on the back of the bike, something. And if they would not, if anybody would be willing to maybe even pay the shipping from Miami to here, which would be no more than $30, $35, somebody could donate a bike for a family, and that would provide this family a job continuity. They could continue working. And we've got companies now that are saying, all right, we're going to start delivery. We're going to start car parts. They're saying, all right, we need 15 guys on bicycles. And so they're offering jobs to everybody. And so our folks need bicycles. Nobody can stay 16 days in line. I couldn't do it straight. I had to take turns with people. So our folks are needing bicycles. This isn't out of, oh, we like this brand. No, this is out of necessity. This is to help our people keep working, to put food on their table. And so we're just praying that God would lead people, individuals, churches to raise the amount of money to buy 5 bikes, 4 bikes, a dozen bikes. It doesn't really matter. If the shipping could be included in that, if they could kind of grab the concept of the whole package, that would be great. In the next letter I'll be sending in a couple of days, they'll have the address of where to send it to and how to send it. And it's really a no-brainer. Matter of fact, you can buy it online instead of buying it at your local store, and just buy it online at Miami. And that way it goes directly to the warehouse that's in Miami and it's shipped here.
Fantastic. Well, Dan, I'm going to go ahead and bring our time together to a close. I'm going to ask you to hang on just for a second as I just say goodbye to our people. Again, thank you so much, church family, for joining us tonight. Stay tuned. I'll have just a quick slide with some prayer requests and praises in relationship to Dan and the family. And then we'll give you about 2 or 3 minutes to pray over those. And then I'll come back with a quick transition out of that. So again, thank you so much for being with us today. Really appreciate you, church family, plugging in and the way that you've been praying and supplying for missionaries. You all have a blessed, blessed night.
Well, again, thank you for joining us tonight. We hope it truly was a blessing to you. We hope you'll make our time together on Wednesday night a part of your weekly worship and ministry to others. And so from all of us here on the staff of Tri-County Baptist Church, have a wonderful evening.